Hello, I'm Carrie Gard, and welcome to Tea Time with Tech Marketing Leaders. Welcome back to the show. Q2, y'all. Q2. Not really sure where Q1 went. It was sort of like a blink and you miss it. But Q2 of 2024, and I am stoked to be launching into the new quarter with this episode. Before I get there, a little housekeeping. If you're here with us on LinkedIn or YouTube, we'd love to hear from you. Say hello. I'm monitoring the comments. I'm looking to see who's joining us. And we look forward to your questions first and foremost, because that's the beauty of being live is we get to have a dialogue with y'all, and we're here for it. We are here for it. I am not here next week. I am traveling to London. I'm taking a break. I'll miss you too. But we will be having a little interlude of one of our previous episodes. So if you want a little throwback Thursday, tune in. We are here for it. I will be back the following week. And oh man, y'all. I've had some doozies lately, and this one's certainly going to be one of those. And I'm having a stream of doozies that y'all are going to tune in for, and when I get back, it's going to be a good one. So make sure you subscribe when I drop that event link for sure to tune into my episode with Heidi. It's going to be great. It's going to be great. I am especially stoked for this conversation. I love talking about product-led growth. I've had a few folks on with me. We've had some amazing shows in the past. And I love a good, I don't want to say friction, but like a good mic drop. And Nate is certainly going to do that for us here today. Before we get into it, though, a little intro for Nate Burke, who is the Chief Marketing Officer of TBD. He is passionate about bringing new technologies to market to solve real problems. He has held marketing leadership roles in Exonius, Hexadite, CloudLock, and a frequent contributing author on topics related to the intersection of collaboration and security. He is a cybersecurity marketing leader responsible for building a marketing strategy to bring software solutions to market involving partner marketing, direct marketing, and other channel marketing, leading the marketing organizations to create multi-channel campaigns and drive qualified leads to sales, developing lead generation strategies and nurturing campaigns to move leads through the funnel, building demand generation programs to educate the market and drive inbound conversions, creating a marketing technology infrastructure to leverage marketing automation, predictive prospect analysis, lead scoring, account qualifying scoring, and behavior-based sales workflows. Man, that is quite the resume. And I wanted to read it all because it is really going to lend itself to his expertise and the topic we have on hand. Nate, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. This is going to be fun.
Oh, it is. Times have changed. Things are moving, and we are here to be on the cutting edge, and I can't wait to get into it. Before we get there, though, I sort of gave a brief resume of all the amazing things you've done. Little name drops here and there. In terms of what they were called versus what they are now, from VMware to Microsoft, certainly did some buying and acquisitions there. So you've certainly been around the block, but I'd love to hear the story from you and how you got there. So what are you doing now, without naming names, and how did you get there?
Okay. What am I doing now is like we were saying before we hit record or stream or whatever, I am now working at a very early stage cybersecurity company and looking at the calendar, and I see the date of the 24th, which is when we're going to emerge from stealth with a new name. And like, finally, I'll tell you, one of the worst things for a marketer, it's probably worse for sales, but for a marketer is being in stealth. I don't know who came up with that idea. It's a terrible idea. What are you doing? Why are we, come on. So I'm building everything from the beginning. So I've been at this new company, named to be told later. I started January 2nd, and everything has just been heads down, building everything from scratch so that when we launch and tell the world, hey, come look at us, we'll be ready for it. So that's what I'm doing right now. Before that, my most recent company was a company called Exonius. I was the first US employee there. I started before we had a product, and I left just after we crossed 100 million ARR mark. So a little over 6 years. So that was a ton of fun. I got to do a lot of really cool stuff there. Went from very small company to like 600. I had a team when I left of like 43. That was amazing. I've got a ton of stories happy to tell, including one that ended up with a tattoo. We can get there if you want to. But yeah, I've done a bunch of cybersecurity startups. That's what I love. I love the building. I love the having the audacity to say, I'm going to bring something into the world that doesn't exist, and we're going to do it better than giants that that are already there, and then figuring out how to tell the story. So that's kind of what I love doing, and I've been fortunate enough to do it at several different companies with varying levels of success and few acquisitions, and then the last one was like by far the most successful, and now I'm starting from scratch again.
The build up. I love it. And we are all on the edge of our seats to know where you are headed next. So if you are curious to see Nate in action, clearly he's done this a couple of times where he's come in and built from the ground up and then either exited or the company kept on going in the scale up phase. And you want to see it happen, then be sure to follow Nate on LinkedIn for his journey. I know I will. On the end of my seat, y'all. It's going to be glorious. In terms of where you are now, sort of going back to the beginning, right? You've been with Axios for 6 years. You've seen them through to that sort of major milestone of that growth stage. And now you're sort of be kind, rewind, shown my age, back to the beginning to do it again. So where are you right now in terms of your biggest challenge? What's sort of in your way of feeling like it's a little bit of a throwback? I've been here before, been there, done that, but also this is new and exciting and a little different than I remember it.
Yeah, there's two big challenges. One is there's not enough hours in the day. I haven't figured out how to solve that. I haven't even made any progress really. So there's that one, and then there's the no one knows who we are, right? So I think the second one is really what I'm trying to battle against now. We're in a very early market, I would call it, and this is kind of what I was doing before at the last company and then the company before that, where there's a big problem in cybersecurity and we're trying to solve it, but it requires some education. It requires telling people that this is really a market. It requires what I think is the hardest thing, which is you're talking to someone who woke up in the morning, the lights went on, they had breakfast, they went through their day, they went to bed, and they didn't know you existed, and things were fine, right? The sky didn't fall. And so how do I then build the story to say, unlike yesterday, today is the day you should pay attention to this thing? And so it's really trying to reverse engineer that story to let people know that something that they're doing today, a challenge that they're facing, is something that can be overcome by a thing, and that thing is what we have, right? So it seems simple when you put it that way, but there's a lot to it. And I think changing people's behavior is about the hardest thing you can do. And that's really the big challenge, is trying to figure out, in the hours that you're spending on your day-to-day as a cybersecurity practitioner, why should you take the time out to look at this new thing that can solve your problem compared to everything else you have to do? It's hard.
It's hard, and there's benefits to category creation, right?
Sure.
It's hard to break through, but then once you're found, it's like, oh, there's this thing that's going to make my life easier that I didn't know about. It's a little easier of a sell, especially if you don't have a lot of competitors yet. So it's like an initial hard, but ideally, in a perfect world scenario of category creation, it's supposed to, in theory, get a little easier, especially if you're doing it in a way people haven't thought about. So I'm excited.
You're exactly right. And to me, and we're about to have RSA in May, right? And so there is nothing more humbling, but also rewarding than having 200 people come up to you and say, so what do you do? And then trying out the messaging and getting the reaction, and then figure out, ooh, that did not land at all. Or they say, what I think you're saying is this. And you're like, yeah, that, you know what? I'm going to use that. So I can't wait for that. having that conversation and with people that aren't necessarily looking for what you have or don't think it's a problem we're solving. So like it's not the friendliest of friendly conversations. And I love that. It's really a challenge. And if you can do that well and learn from it, then you're exactly right. It gets easier as you go, but I'm just like, I can't wait to have those first at bats.
I love that you're going to use RSA as battleground.
Yeah.
I think events where a lot of trials right back to back to back. It's a lot of very quick iteration. You got to be thinking on your feet on that one. Um, I haven't heard many people say that they use events for
Oh yeah.
that iteration. So I think that's exciting, and I yeah, I'm gonna follow up with you, Nate. I want to see how that goes, because that's really
Yeah.
when you're
Yeah.
gonna be launching, right? So you're gonna be launching just before that, and then
Yeah, just a couple of weeks before, and that's to me like that is the testing ground, right? You
Mhm.
think and you've got this idea of what your perfect 3 minute, 1 minute, whatever pitch is, but you don't know until you try it, and you try it over and over and over and over again. You feel pretty confident about what works and what doesn't when you're done, and there is no better sleep than the day after you get back from a week of doing this with no voice and you're just spent and I love it. I do it every year.
I love that. I'm not going to RSA this year, but I am going to Cybersecurity Marketing Con. So maybe I'll run into you there. I can hear your pitch firsthand.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll be ready for it. I'll be ready for it. We're going to switch gears because what we're talking about today might play into the new role that you have. I'll be curious to know, but it's a hot topic for sure. I know some greats out there who are amazing at PLG, but it's very hard to get right, if at all. Before we get into like the heart of the hearts in terms of this topic, Nate, I think everybody knows what PLG is, but I feel like everybody has a different idea on what it is or what it should be doing. So what's your definition of product-led growth?
Yeah. So it does differ, but I think the at the most basic level, it is letting someone try the thing without you guiding them throughout. So it's trials. It's the ability to just sign up and immediately try the thing before you talk to sales, before you do anything like that. And so to me, like it's almost trying to add a consumer motion to B2B. And there are companies that do a great job at this. But in security, it's just different. I'm more than happy to talk about why, but and kind of go into detail about that. But just think about what you do in your own life. I bet people watching this right now, 74% within the last week have tried something. I just made that up, but it sounds right, right? I mean,
It's
I
good
I
gut
signed up for
feeling.
a trial of something this week. I know I did, and we all do, right? We want to try a thing before we think about buying it, and we want to see if it is solving the problem we're trying to solve. And so, doing it without having someone gatekeep and give us access, it's something we're used to now. And I think PLG is the way of letting people validate your marketing claims themselves instead of just believing what's on your website.
I would say too that in a perfect world, PLG does two things. One is you don't really need sales unless you're on an enterprise level. People should be able to get in there and use it, ideally. And even better when it sells itself in terms of like that spider web effect. So Canva is like a perfect example in my
Yep.
brain, where I use Canva all the time. I signed up for Canva. I haven't talked to a single salesperson, nor do I intend to. But I get emails about product updates. I just figured out that they do websites now. Now I
Hmm.
don't know if I'll use it, but kind of mind-boggling that they are sort of like they have like their Wix option, and I found that out without even talking to a salesperson. Um, Also, when I invite people to get to approve something, like if I have clients looking at something to approve it, now they're getting into Canva. They got to sign up, right?
Right.
All without talking to sales. To me, that is true product led growth. And I would say it is very tough to do, especially on an enterprise level. And to your point, cybersecurity, because it's complex.
Well, there's a
You
couple of
need
things to it too,
a
right? Where
person,
one
right?
is with your Canva example, you already know what you want to do, right? So the thing is just the enabler of the thing I already know what I want to do. But like imagine if Microsoft Excel had a trial. Like, okay, I can do a couple of spreadsheety things, but like pivot tables and a lot of it, like if it's something where I don't know exactly what I want to do, then it's kind of hard. Even if you have the best tooltips and the walkthrough and all that stuff, it's still difficult. Now, add to that if it's something that's a cybersecurity product, and
Mm-hmm.
well, what do you want it to do? Well, I want it to, let's say, stop threats. Well, what does that even mean? Or what's the scope? Or what am I going to connect it to? Like, there's just a lot to it, and especially if it's something like you brought up earlier on, where it's category creation. Well, so I don't know the category this thing is in. I don't know exactly what it's going to do. I don't know how to use it. How am I going to get success out of a trial of that?
Right.
It's just a different animal.
Yeah, so that's why. So I think that's what the question we're trying to answer through the show is, that actually product led growth then?
Yeah, and so this is I'll get to the example that we were talking about a while back, where we at Exonius, we decided we really wanted to do that. We wanted to do the PLG thing, and we wanted people to try it, and we thought, let's set this thing up exactly like any other PLG sort of trial, and we'll get really good at it. And I remember trying to engineer this thing and saying, well, activation is going to be this if they do these three things, and we'll score it, and then we'll have all these like crazy workflows around it and do all we can to like tooltip their way through it and all of that stuff. And my thought was, all right, so once they get to this point, they really know how to use this thing, and then they'll be ready to buy. And like, don't involve sales until they get to that point. And so we engineered this whole trial and kicked this thing off. And then once we started looking at the behavior, we realized, oh, this is something else entirely. And the something else entirely was, why would someone do a trial in the first place? And my thought was, because they want to use the product and they want to see if this thing works for them. And my thought was, okay, they're going to show up, and then they're going to connect all these different data sources, and they're going to go through the trial and set up queries and all this other stuff. Nope, totally wrong. Here's what they would do. They would show up. They would poke around. They would look at a few things. They wouldn't connect anything at all. And then they would click contact sales. Like, this is broken. We screwed up. Like, we did this wrong. Like, something is broken in the trial. And then after talking to people that went through the trial, it became evident that it wasn't really a trial. It was validation. They were saying anybody could say anything they want and come up with fake screenshots on the website. And people were just trying to understand what they're saying. Is that actually in the product? They weren't ever going to really connect to the data sources. They just wanted to see, is this thing real? And so the best flow we saw was sign up for trial, do a few things, contact sales, book a demo. And it was like a huge conversion from that to an actual demo and then a POC, because it is a product where you had to have the credentials to the different data sources, and you had to be able to really understand how to use the thing. And so it was just this ability to validate that, okay, this can do what I want. And then I actually do need someone to kind of walk me through and make sure I understand it. But that one step is crazy, because they could have just clicked book a demo, but instead they did this first. And it was such a great predictor of someone that was really qualified if they're willing to do that, even though they weren't really doing a trial.
Let's unpack that, because I think this is crucial. I hope y'all, I don't know how I'm going to figure this out. Like, if I can make sure people can fast forward to this moment in time, well, like 3 minutes ago when you started describing the thing, I would do that. And if this is the only part of the show that you would listen to initially, like, yes, Exonius, let's talk about Exonius for a second,
Yeah,
because I think it's
sure.
important to understand the lay of the land, if you will. For that product in particular, who was your ideal customer?
So it really depends. I mean, it was definitely insecurity, and it was the person that had to answer the question, what do I have for devices, and are they in the state that I expect them to be in regarding security? So like, does it have an endpoint agent? Is it being scanned for vulnerabilities by my VA scanner? Like, are the tools that I have actually, do they know about these assets, and are they in the right kind of security state? Right. So the first question is like, and we'd always ask this, I would say, how many devices do you have? And the answer I would always get is either I have no idea, or between like 30 and 150,000, which is a range big enough to mean I have no idea. So the idea was, by connecting to all these different data sources, Exonius can show you all of the assets you have, and whether or not they're covered by your security tools, right? So at a very high level, and there's a lot more to it than that, but that's the idea. And so to do that, you have to connect to all these different data sources. To connect to all the data sources, you have to have the credentials for those. And you're talking to a team that's got, I don't know, 100 people in security. Like, no one person has all those credentials. So like, no one's going to show up on day one saying, I'm ready to go in this trial.
So you're talking to practitioners generally.
Yep.
At, I would say, an enterprise. If you're talking about IT teams that big, security teams that big, you're talking enterprise level.
Yep.
Right. So you're also talking about pretty pricey purchase that's got to be ingrained within the organization. And chances are that practitioner is one decision maker of many. Maybe they're not even the decision maker. They're just kind of like, I kind of like this thing. Can I work this up the chain of command to get somebody to approve this and the costs that it might entail? Right. So there's a lot of layers there in terms of the complexity, which I feel like so many security companies vendors run into in terms of trying to work with the security department. So yes, I think that's important to understand. The second piece is, when we're talking about this audience in particular being security practitioners, their trust levels, I would say, pretty low.
And rightfully so.
Absolutely. They've seen it all, folks. They've seen it all. So asking them to talk to a person that they can't validate, pretty tricky. So having that trial sounds like a really great starting point. What's interesting about the trial is that, to your point, there's all these data, like, it's a huge lift. So why does trial actually make sense? I think that's sort of the question you're putting out to the universe for us all to answer as we're thinking about our own PLG motions of why would I do a trial? And to your point and how you approach trial, it was like, well, I want people to get in there and I want them to get a feel for it. I want them to like start doing the thing. Yeah. But that's not what you found out, which makes a ton of sense.
Right. But then also looking backwards, it's just so obvious to me now, and wasn't then, but I wouldn't have come to this conclusion. Sure. But it's what is the one thing that they're looking to do? The only thing that they're looking to do is save time. That's it. Right. So they're looking to solve a problem that they're doing manually that's taking them a lot of time, and it shouldn't be that hard. And so they're saying, all right, I want to save time. And then they go to a website and there's a big button that says book a demo, and that's going to be 45 minutes. I don't want to do that yet. All right. So what would save me some time? Well, if I click on this thing and go into a trial, that'll save me some time. All right. Now I'm looking around. This is cool, but I don't know exactly how to do the thing and set it up. So rather than just like me trying to learn it on my own and reading through release notes, I want to save time. So I'm going to save time on the next step. I'm going to book a demo. And on the demo, I'm going to say, I'm already in your trial. Just tell me how to do this thing. So that conversation is very different from, all right, spend 15 minutes, tell me about the problem, and then spend the next 10 on your approach. And then after that, like, you're going to show me a little bit. No, it changes the equation. It's now, all right, I want to save time because I'm doing this manually. Cool. So I want to solve it. Now I'm going to say, let me look at the thing first before I get on a sales call. Great. I looked at the thing, save some time there. Now on the sales call, it's not a sales call. It's an enablement call. Now I understand the thing. It's going to solve my problem. It's going to save me time. Show me how to use it. Every step along the way It's just someone saying, save me time. If you approach it that way and know that that's what they're looking for, I think it changes the way you structure a trial and you structure the entire motion.
Everything. I would assume, knowing the very little information I have, having not worked inside of an organization running marketing from the inside, that the sales motion would even change, where you might not want a salesperson there, but more of a customer success BDR potentially. I wonder, does that role change?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both, because you definitely need sales there because I think at that level, sales is more enablement than it is like real selling at that point, because it's more of a, like you said, someone shows up, they might not have the authority, they might not be the right person, they might not know how to build the case for it, even if they're in love with the thing, right? It reminds me of, like, I saw this billboard a long time ago. It was like and it's like so cliche, but it's true, which is like, it was a car dealership and it was, we don't sell cars, we help you buy. I'm like, yeah, okay, sure. But it turns out to be true in a lot of cases, where someone's like, I don't want to spend time doing this manually. I want to use something and do anything else with my time. And if you can then on the sales side be all right, so who do we have to convince, or how do we give you what you need to make the case inside, right? So I think sales is absolutely part of that. It's just a different type of conversation. And then the other side is an SE or something like someone that is more on the technical enablement side, whether that's like a customer success or a sales engineer or a solutions architect, whatever that is. So yeah, it's a different approach. The end goal is the same, but how it happens is different, especially when you know they're already in the product, because a lot of what you do pre-sales before someone's in a trial or a POC or whatever is try to convince them to actually use the product or sign up for the product or whatever. Now that barrier is gone, it's more of a, how do we get you to use the thing enough to see value? And then how do we help you make the case for it if you need that help?
I think this is so different than how we've been approaching marketing and sales up until now, and the market is definitely shifting as well, away from hard selling and cold outreach. Um, this is definitely a warmer engagement. It's definitely putting the buyer in the seat of decision making, which is what they want. So I think this makes a really clear case for trial if people haven't done it. My question is, if you're not already doing a PLG motion, right? Like, the beauty is you've been able to start so many products from scratch, so you get to sort of stay ahead of time. Like, okay, here's how we're going to build our marketing motion from the ground up with these tools. You probably have your perfect tech stack you've already vetted and know what you want to use. But for people who are maybe having an aha moment of like, oh no, this is what I should be doing, but we're kind of far down the cycle here, where should they start in terms of trying to get trials? A huge lift, right? If you're not thinking about it on the onset. So is there another way, or is trial, you really need to like have a way for people to access the product and see it in action? Is that
Yeah, I
really
guess
key?
it really depends on how you have a sales motion anyway, right? So if you're a company that has a product that, let's just say that you have to do something in the back end just to provision a customer, and then you hand it off to them, but you can't do it automatically. Okay, how is that any different from a trial other than the initial step? So to me, it's like all right, so imagine you have two calls to action. One is book a demo, which is an education and qualification process before anybody has access to your thing. Fine, cool. And then the second one is start a trial or start a POC or POV or whatever you want to call it. And what you're saying is, okay, happy to set up a trial for you, but the first thing we have to do is have a call to, like, provision you or get you started or let you know what you need or whatever, right? Be super upfront about that, because if you say start a trial and then someone clicks start a trial, put in their information, and then it's now we're going to call you and we're going to do a 45, like that's not going to work. But if you're upfront about it and say, okay, start a trial, call to action, go to it, on the page, it just says, here's what's going to happen next. Number one, after you submit this form, we're going to get in touch to find a time so we can just walk you through the setup. okay, I'm willing to do that. And then once we walk through the setup, then you'll get the trial instance. It'll be 30 days. It'll be XYZ. And then we'll show you exactly how to do whatever the thing is. I think I'm okay with that, right? As long as I'm not surprised. And so it's not an automatic trial. It's not something where you're just letting everyone in the world in, but it is functionally the same thing as long as you treat it that way. And you can't do the bait and switch where it's like, even though I gave that messaging up front, I'm just going to give them a sales pitch. Like, you have to treat it differently.
Yeah.
But it's not that different from an actual trial.
I think that's really helpful for people who are trying to figure out how to get started on that. Let's back up even further. Okay, so we're sort of working from the very bottom and we're pulling back. So we have a customer success and salesperson who meet for a demo. There's obviously going to be steps after that, but let's assume that if you've gotten this far, you've made the short list, you're having some good conversation. They wouldn't start a trial if they weren't truly vetting you and maybe 2 other companies, right? So you're on the short list, things are going well. We're just going to assume the rest of the sales motion happens. So let's take the step before that is being able to sign up for a trial in some capacity, whether it's being able to get right into it and then ask for sales, or whether it's, to your point, needing a provision and that step to have a brief conversation so that it can be set up properly. Let's take that next step before that, right? So let's assume all of this works like butter. You'll get in the trial, they can talk to customer sales, no problem, and everything works as it's supposed to, and automation is set up accordingly.
Of course.
It feels very bottom of the funnel, though. Like, this is, like I said, people have said, okay, here's my short list. These are the companies I'm going to vet, and you're one of them, and they're starting that process.
Yep.
But how do you even get them there? I mean, the times have changed so much in terms of how we market. Now you're bringing AI into it. Now you're bringing ad blockers into it. Helpful, not helpful. So, in terms of it being PLG, and one of the beautiful things about it, like I mentioned, is some of that little bit of referral action. We got account-based marketing. There's all these different ways we could sort of approach bringing people to a trial. What's sort of your next step in terms of that bottom of the funnel for building up before we get like super awareness?
Yep. So I'm going to answer it 2 ways. So one is, it's not exactly what you're asking, but this is the part where I'm going to say something that I think people will get some value from, which is, so I remember, and I'm going to shout her out, Lauren Kursanski, who ran marketing ops and still runs marketing ops at Exonius. She's like, we really need a product tour. I'm like, why would we need a product tour? And I'm saying, we've got videos on our site. We've got a trial. Like, isn't a product tour like 3% milk? Like, what's the point? I don't understand. Like, why are we doing this? And like many times in my career, I was exactly wrong. And so having product tours on the site is that step before I'm willing to give my information. And it's something where you can actually like click around and feel what the product is like and get this guided like experience through it. I never thought it would be useful, and it was a huge increase in conversion. So that's just like the step before the signing up for the trial. I think what you're getting at though is the other part.
Let's sit there because that's really key. I've heard this before. There was somebody on my show who mentioned this, and the tool they used was walnut.io, which is the one they plugged when they went on the show. So
the one I'm going to plug is called Nevatic.
Okay.
And it lets you just create these product tours that are super, super easy, where you can just define like where to click, what comes up, where to put your calls to action, like all of that. And it was a massive increase in conversion for us.
I think that's really important, because if you if you're not quite ready for the trial, or like you're working on it, I mean, that's an easier first step, right? Because you're using a MarTech product and you just need a working product and you can show it off, right? So,
and it's easy, and it's like easy to build those. And again, like hindsight again for me, I have a standing desk here, and it came with instructions. And not only did it come with instructions, it was like, hey, go to YouTube and like see how to install it. Did I do that? Sure didn't. I'm not going to like watch a video to do that. But if I could just go and click and say like, oh, that's where I put the washer, that makes a lot of sense. Like I would have done that. And that's pretty obvious now. Whereas like videos are hard to scan and it's hard to have it step by step unless you're really patient, which I'm not. So it kind of makes sense now, but I was completely against it and thought it was stupid. And now I'm wrong.
I love being wrong.
I'm wrong so much.
I know it's good though, because that's how we learn.
Yeah.
Everyone, it's okay to be wrong. It's actually better if you can like embrace your failure and learn from it and like
It's the
lean
only
into
way.
it.
There's no other way to learn than be wrong.
Right. I always tell people, please correct me. I'm sure I'm getting this wrong. And it's great. What you just did, I skipped a step, a very important step. So I don't want to skip any more steps. So you tell me, Nate, what's that next, what research moment that people, I feel like we're on this research tour with our customers. And so
So
we're
I'm
starting
going
at
to
the
go
bottom, but what's that next research moment?
So I'm going to go exactly the other side of it, which is the very, very top. And so when we started off at Axonius, we thought we were going to be selling to like the biggest companies in the world, right? All enterprise, all day, and that was certainly the case. But we also started seeing the like lower end of the enterprise, like 1,000 employees ish, would show up and they would close a lot sooner. They'd show up in a quarter and close in the same quarter. So we're like, that's where growth is going to be. So let's do that. And then we ran up against an issue, which is if you're going to sell to the masses, they have to know you exist. And so at that point, I remember we did our first like aided recall survey. This was a couple of years into selling. I think we were at 9%. A better way to say that is 91% of our target market had no idea who we were. You're not going to get to the masses that way. So this is where we said, let's start doing some bigger brand campaigns. And that's exactly what we did. And so I was probably the most annoying person on earth, or at least in the top 5, when we were trying to figure out, well, what is the thing that we do that we can say in like a sentence, and how do we sell that message? And I would ask anyone willing to listen 2 things. One is I'd explain what we did and say, if you could say that in 2 words, what is it? And then the second thing is, could you think of anyone that, whether it's a public figure or a celebrity or what, that represents that and could tell that story? And so I asked everyone, and I was like, all right, so first of all, I know what the answer is to the first one. It's all about controlling complexity. And so that was kind of our idea of what our brand was about. We help our customers control complexity. And then I was asking, like, in line at Starbucks or the person next to me on the plane, like, who do you know that represents overcoming complexity? Like, who has done that? And I kept asking over and over and over again, and no one came up with the right answer. And the answer to me was Simone Biles. And so I was like, but she's the most famous athlete on the planet at that time. Like, so we can't get her. And then we just decided, why don't we reach out to her agent anyway? And ends up, we were able to get her. And so we had this big brand campaign with Simone Biles for 2 years. And it elevated our aided recall. Like, I think within the first 18 months, it went from 9 to 27%. And then after the 2 years, it was, I want to say it was in the 30s or 40s. I can't remember exactly. But it really worked, right? And so what I think the takeaway here is, first, you got to figure out what is that really concise thing that you can claim that you do, but it has to be defensible. It has to be real. And then the second thing is, how do you tell that story in a way that really stands out? Because I remember at RSA, it was either RSA or Black Hat, we had these billboards that was, what does Simone Biles have to do with cybersecurity? And people were like, what does she? And so we then had to tell the story, right? But it stood out because, like, cybersecurity, it's hackers in hoodies, and it's matrix style, like, lettering, and, military grade encrypt. Like, everyone does the same thing. We were completely outside of that, and it stood out. And when
And
you stand out, people notice.
everyone knows Simone Biles, regardless of where you work or what industry you're in. So what a beautiful story to connect to that's so human and outside of to your point, the norm. I think so often we try and be so meta, like within the industry, that and tell these like inside jokes, like we know the industry because we can tell these things, and like we know what all these acronyms mean, and like nobody can get in. But to reach outside and say, but this is something everyone can relate to because everybody understands it, regardless, is way to flip that on its head. Um, I think this is so key I've a couple questions around the brand awareness piece, but I just want to call out the simplicity. It feels making controlling complexity here, making something very hard in terms of how you do PLG to something very simple at the end of the day, is having that bottom of the funnel ready to go,
Yep.
and then jumping to the top and filling it
Right.
as in terms of that share of voice and getting after it. And so you said that you did the Simone Biles campaign for 2 years.
Yep.
Did you do like a single shoot where you did a whole bunch of stuff with her and then you just use that content for 2 years, or you had a partnership with her for 2 years? Give us,
Yeah. So it was
give
a
us the
partnership
lowdown.
where we had a couple of shoots per year and events as well. So one she came to RSA with us and we did this event. It was awesome, by the way. It was we did a absinthe tasting event. So we took over this entire bar and she was like behind the bar serving drinks to people. So it was like super exclusive. But I mean, if we invited you, you showed up because like who
Simone
else
Biles
is gonna
was
say
like
like, oh, last night I got served absinthe by Simone Biles? Like that's a brand new sentence no one's ever said before, right? So it was just like it was a cool factor. But then we did the video shoots as well, and so one of the coolest ones, and I got to talk about this, is like a career highlight for me. So we worked with Simone Biles and this woman Amy Bream. So she's a CrossFit athlete, and she was also born with one leg. She did this really cool thing that went viral a few years back, where it was her at this competition and she was trying to lift a weight and she couldn't do it. She tried again, couldn't do it, and you see her like crying, and then she tries it again and does it, and without any audio, without anything at all. Like it was such a universal story of like, all right, she did it, and like you just were pulling for her, and she's just awesome. She's doing like speaking stuff now, and I think she's even like a Nike athlete now. So we had the two of them together, and but one of the things that I care a lot about, and luckily we were able to do all of this at Exonius, was giving back and doing charity stuff. So Simone, as she was a foster kid growing up, and she works with this organization that helps kids in the foster care system, giving them professional mentors. And then Amy has this little girl that has the same, was born in the same condition as her. And so what we were able to do is we did this thing where we brought in someone from Friends of the Children and didn't tell her that Simone was in the background, and came and gave them a $50,000 donation. And like we captured that moment. And then same thing with that little girl Alex and her family. We did the same thing and we were able to give them a $50,000 donation. And so that was just something that was like part of it, and it was like this idea of giving back. And so we really wrapped it around that as well. And so that was something that was just part of what we did, and it was an excuse to do something good, but also like we were able to show that, and it was just such a cool thing to do. But I think it also helped define our brand and make us more trustworthy.
I think this is key, and what a cool opportunity that I don't know that everybody will get to have.
Yeah.
But I want to be really poignant about it because I don't want everybody to just run off and try and find a celebrity that they should work with. And I want to come back to how you got there, because I think it's really important, because you don't need, I mean, maybe you do. I don't know. This was one way to make a really big splash, but at the end of the day, what it comes down to is really sitting with the message and the story, which is what you did for. How long did it take you to really like come up with those two words of controlling complexity, and then asking everyone and their mother as you ran into them, what does controlling complexity mean? I mean, how long
Yeah.
did you really sit with this idea before you got to Simone?
So it took a really great brand person that I had, where, so what I do is I just say words a lot. And then when someone says, what did you just say? I'm like, I have no idea. But I had that person that was like, say that again. And she said, you came up with this thing when I first joined, and like, why don't we use that? And so it was already there. Like, and I think that's the other thing is you end up, when you see a great campaign, you think someone, went to the mountaintop and meditated and it just came to them. Like, you have it, it's there. Like, it already exists. You just got to figure out, you just have to like pick it up, right? It exists in your company right now. Your controlling complexity is there. You just have to like find the ingredients and put it together, right? So that part wasn't hard. And I think what you're saying is exactly true, because I've told the story a lot of times, and some people are like, I don't have millions of dollars to spend on a person. You don't need to. The idea is that it was something different, right? If you walk through RSA and look at all the booths, if you just took the logo out, they're interchangeable. Like, they're all saying the same thing. If you come up with an idea that is both succinct, clear, and different, and it represents your brand, and like it's true, you don't need a celebrity to do it. You just need the ability to tell that story in a different way. And to me, like, I don't know who said it, but there's someone that said that, better is subjective, but different you can measure. And you know what different is when you see it, but you know what the same is too. And there's nothing riskier than being exactly like everyone else, because you're going to face the same limitations and only get to the success level that they have. But if you're different, like, there's no limitation.
I think this is one of the things you says, that you had a really incredible brand person, and brand is making a comeback by design, in that when we think about category creation, or how we used to think about category creation, it was so much about the thing we were trying to accomplish and the problem we were trying to solve, not necessarily who we are as a company. But now with AI and the way that Google search is happening, the way that ads are sort of like easily ignored, the way messaging is getting washed out, like you're saying, for B2B, especially with cyber now being so saturated, brand is making a comeback. Maybe for cyber, it's even making an entry in a really big way. It has to. And so I think this is a really poignant moment for anybody listening to like hang on to this and take it with you. And if you don't feel like you have Nate's superpower of being able to find those few words or that thing, and to his point, he had it in him, he just needed somebody to sort of point it out. Find that thought partner, like whether that's internally or externally, find someone to like just riff with, because that's really what brand's so hard to do. Because, correct me if I'm wrong, Nate, because you do this more often than me, but in my opinion and experience, it feels very vaporware at first. It's not like a thing you immediately create. Like, you get there eventually, but it's a journey. And it feels hard to like wrap your arms around, because you can't just be like, I'm going to go run a Google ad. I'm just going to go write that email. I'm just going to go do this very tactical thing right now. It's like big brain work. So
it is, but it's one of those things too. It's like air traffic controllers. Like, you don't even think about them until something goes wrong, or if something's really bad. But it's something that is just like, it's just there. And brand, to me, is the only thing that creates irrational value, right? It's the reason that you're willing to pay more for something, even though the sum of the parts are the same as the thing that you could just like get at Walmart, right? Like, there's something to it. And it's like it's a belief. It's also like the sum of everything and every interaction. So like, there's a lot to it, right? And there's a lot that can go wrong. But think of any brand that you love, and the reason you love it, it doesn't make sense. It's not logical. It's not rational. It's all feeling. But then if you kind of try to reverse engineer that, and so what are you? Like, what is your company? What do you stand for? What's the intention? Like, what, all of those things, like you said, are big things, and they're not easy. But if you stand for something and you can articulate it, and then everything else stems from it, not only is that super valuable, but it also helps dictate the decisions that you're making for, the ad stuff, the copy, the whatever you do. So getting that right drives everything else. And if you're consistent, then you will stand out. And that's the difference between you and everybody else that claims to do the same thing as you.
I kind of want to mic drop there and say, there you have it, folks. But I do think there's this like gaping hole that I want to try and somewhat quickly fill. We talked about the very bottom of the funnel and getting people into the trial and trying the thing and talking to sales. But there is a very big journey between the brand piece and the getting to somebody to that trial. So what's that middle of the funnel for you look like, or it's brand all you need?
Nope. It's what problem are you solving for someone? That's the middle part, right? So one is the top of the funnel is I don't know this thing exists. The bottom is you or someone else, and the middle is I'm trying to solve a thing. And so to me, it is, well, what is the list of problems that we can solve? And you have to be able to solve them. And then what are the things that we actually don't do? And then it's how do you create the content, the experience, the thought leadership, the whatever around that, such that someone saying, I want to go solve this problem, they find you. And the other part of that is you have to have enough promotion awareness, whatever, through social, through ads, through you name it, through being at events, where the moment someone's like, I'm thinking of this problem, you're there. Then it's magic, right? When, like if you're trying to solve a problem and then just through the magic of whatever, it appears right here. Oh yeah, okay. That is the thing that can solve that. You've got to, like, to me, the biggest thing that has changed in the recent, I don't know, 5 years is that attention has such a short shelf life that you have to be everywhere. And first, you've got to have that message, like the brand part. And second, you have to be able to catch it at the other end, which is the conversion, the trial, the whatever. But that middle part of being wherever someone is looking when they might be ready and they have that problem. I mean, there's a lot to that, and it's not easy. But like you said, the ABM, the targeting, the technology we have makes it easier. But with attention span on the decline and the saturation of everyone else in the market, not only do you have to stand out, but you have to stand out and be there all the time.
All the time, folks. It's a tall order. It's a lot to do. You need a lot of diverse messaging to do it as well. And I wish we had all the time in the world to unpack that. Maybe, Nate, you gotta, hang out with this new company, get some things going, and then you gotta circle back with me and tell us more, because man, I could hang out and talk to you all day. You are a wealth of information, and I'm so grateful for how much tea you spilled today. Oh my gosh, guys. I hope you brought your cloths to soak it all up, because this is a new dawn, an era of how we need to work with our buyers. And Nate just gave us the playbook. So I hope you wrote it down.
And I look forward to the time where everyone listening to this says, please stop targeting. I see your ads everywhere.
That'll be a great problem to have. Yes. Yes. Before we go, Nate, you are more than a marketer. It's 2024. We are in Q2. Spring is sprung for some, not for every. It's still very cold and rainy here, but we're waiting for it. We're on the edge of our seats. We're ready. What are you most looking forward to now that we're sort of through like the era of COVID and learning to live with it, and travel's opened up and the weather's getting better, and outside of work, what are you most looking forward to?
So it's not quite outside of work. So I'm looking forward to, on Sunday, the new company. We're all getting together for the first time. We've never been together as a company. We're going to be in Barcelona. That's going to be awesome. After that, I am going with my wife and daughter on a cruise. So I'm looking forward to that. And I just got a new camera, and I'm so excited to learn that thing. I won't be doing it through YouTube videos, like I said. I actually am reading the manual, which is weird. So I'm just excited to like get out, be outside. I live on Cape Cod. I've got a kayak. Can't wait till it's time for kayaking and riding the bike and like all of that stuff. So just getting out and not being stuck inside and being freezing sounds pretty great to me.
Ah, yes to all of that, all the warmth, all the adventures. I hope you post some on LinkedIn so I can live vicariously. Love it. Nate, I'm so grateful. Thank you so much for joining us. Where can people find you? Where do you hang out? When you get back, don't bother him now, folks. He's off to all these adventures. But when he gets back, where can people find you?
I would just LinkedIn. I've been silent over the last couple of months since I've been building this thing, but I won't be, and that's the best place to find me. I finally realized that I'm too old for Instagram and I don't understand Twitter anymore. So just LinkedIn.
I so feel you on the Twitter front, and Instagram's for my family. I do everything else on LinkedIn. So yes, I feel you on that, Nate. Wonderful. I am so grateful for this conversation. If you like this episode, please like, subscribe, and share. This episode is brought to you by MKG Marketing, the digital marketing agency that helps complex brands like cybersecurity companies get found via SEO and digital ads, growing from startup all the way through exit. Companies like Extra Hop, where we help them close out a $900 million buyout. And we look forward to working with more companies in that realm. If you'd like to be a guest on this show, I'd love to have you. DM me. Let's hang out. Come join me. Thank you all so much. Have a wonderful day. And thank you again, Nate.
All right. Thank you.